Sure. And
Okay.
well, good morning.
Good morning.
Coffee talk. Can I unpack this weekend with you?
Can we what?
Can I unpack this weekend with you
Yes.
and tell you how hard it was for me as a mom?
Yes,
Which I
please.
have to say, I don't have these moments very often where I'm like, that was a hard mom time for me. I just don't. But this weekend was hard. And like we were talking earlier about my son being 15 and new to high school and his first high school party. And interesting, and I do think this is like the most interesting thing, and you'll have to tell me your experience too when it comes to other parents, or moms, and sharing with a group of women I was going to go out with. And by the way, all of their kids are graduated and out. I'm like the old mom with the young kids, and me wanting to meet them, have a cocktail, go home, and just let my son know I was home in case he needed anything. And the response basically was like, why? Why? What's the big deal? And I'm like, I just want him to know. Oh, why? I'm like, just it's the way I operate. And, noticing how that made me feel to hear that, which was, I didn't really give a shit. So, I get home and within about a half an hour, I do get a text from my son saying, come get me. I feel really overwhelmed, you know, and then talking it through and talking about the different way parents parent and him being at a party with two parents that are allowing alcohol and vaping and pot smoking and him feeling like he's babysitting kids who are vomiting all over the place. And I
Mhm.
wasn't expecting that. Like we live in an area like who does that? Well, apparently some people do. And it gave us the opportunity to really talk it through. But I didn't like it, Kim.
No. And I get not liking it as a parent, and I'll share like we were probably those kids in our neighborhood that had the parties at the house with the parents there, and everyone was drunk and smoking pot and going crazy, getting wild. And for me, I was like, oh yeah, I'm super cool because like my mom lets me do this. But looking back, I
Hmm.
really do wish there was like some structure of like, hey, like we need to be safe here. Like, you know, you're 15, probably shouldn't be drunk and smoking a ton of pot in our house.
That's so interesting because that was not the way I was brought up. Like I was brought up in a very controlled home. So like none of that, I never experienced anything like that. So when you think back, like, do you really have that thought? Like when you think back, is it sort of like a mixed bag of like, oh, it's really fun and oh
No,
shit.
it's totally a mixed bag. Absolutely. Like my mom, once we hit like a certain age, which was like 15, 16, like she was just, okay, I'm going to be your friend rather than your mom.
Uh,
And she went into that friend mode, which was great in its own way, because we got to have these raging parties. And I knew that if I was like at a party and I was like intoxicated, I could call her and be like, hey, come pick me up. And she would. No problem, no questions asked. But looking back, I do think I wanted, I needed a mom more than I needed a friend at
mhm.
times because there was a lot of things that I was going through that I just wish like I could unload like what was going on as a kid and needing a parent, and that wasn't available.
So is it, I'm curious again, because it just wasn't how I was brought up. Is it now that you're a mom, you're like, I think I was thinking those thoughts? Or is it now that I'm a mom, I was thinking those thoughts and I was, if I give myself the time to think about it? Like, were there moments that you can remember when you were like 15, 16, being like, what the fuck? Or were you just like, cool? What was it?
I think a majority of the time it was, oh, this is cool,
Mm-hmm.
because I just got to do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted.
Mm.
There was no one there. But then there was times where I just looking back as a mom, now as a mom, looking back and reflecting on that, I do think there was a part of me that really actually wanted some stability and some
Mhm.
structure.
Hmm.
because there was none. There was none. It was a free for all. You could do what you want when you wanted, but I do wish there was some stability and structure to keep me in line with myself. And I also think back, so my sister and I were just 1 year apart. And so we partied together. We did all this together. And we got into a lot of drugs. And she couldn't get out.
Mm. Yeah.
So she couldn't get out for some reason. I was lucky enough that I did. I guess I just don't have that genetic code.
Yeah.
And I could get out of the drugs, but she couldn't. So I lost my sister in that process,
I'm sorry. That's hard.
for like 12 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer. Yeah. So that's
Well,
where I wish that structure came in, where somebody was like actually looking out for us and being curious as to what we were actually doing. Because I'm pretty sure my mom knew we were like partying, but I don't think she knew we were partying that hard.
yeah.
And we were. We were.
Well, what I heard you say is I wish somebody was there to keep me in line with myself.
Yeah.
Like I like the way you said that because it's like when you think back of being that kid, I wish somebody had kept me in line with myself. What do you think that would have looked like for you at that time? Would it have been questions? What would have been?
Well, I think part of it is definitely questions of like, does this express who you actually are, Kim? But also, I don't think I knew at all who Kim was,
Of course.
and who does at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
I still don't.
yeah, yeah. But like it was looking back, those party moments, that was totally me trying to fit in and
Sure.
be accepted by everybody else and not having a clue of what I was about.
Sure.
I just wish there was more questions of like, who are you? Who do you want to be? What is your goals? And like that may have helped me keep in integrity with who I was or who I was trying to be or wanted to be in my life.
It's interesting because Ryder and I were having lots of conversations about like, I have said to him before, you can always tell your friends when you're out, if you're going to be faced with so much stuff and so many new things with drinking and drugs, all this stuff. You're always welcome to say, my mother drug tests me, so I can't. I don't. Not yet. I don't know if I ever will, but I'm like, here's an out.
Hmm.
The other thing is I'm like, let's tell the truth about your physical body, and what his dad's side of the family has lung issues. So like the reality is you have to be super careful because it can be an issue for you in the long run. I try my hardest to talk about everything and name everything with and for him so that he can start trying things on and figuring out how it makes him feel. And like even after this party, I was like, what if you could like take a minute and right now while we sit here and think about like roll back the camera a little bit and walk back inside that house as if you're observing it or not even a part of it any longer. You're just walking through. When you see, and he goes, a lot of kids out of control, they started throwing up. It was scary. And when I look at these parents, I'm like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, no, and like, what happens for you? He goes, I don't want to be a part of something like that. It's gross. Yeah. But what about your friends? And he's like, my one friend, he reached back out to ask if I had left. And I said, yeah, I just got overwhelmed and he was cool with it. I'm like, oh, well, what if he wasn't cool with it? He goes, I don't care. Like, I'm not staying there. And then it was interesting too. He said, Mom, was my sister ever overwhelmed? Because his sister's 4 years older, right? Was she ever overwhelmed at parties? I'm like, yes. Yeah, she was. And thank goodness we had the opportunity, she and I, to talk about it because she had an incident once where she was overwhelmed and had a panic attack and didn't know what it was. It just scared her terribly. But because we talked so much, because we had the ability to talk so much and talk it through, it's like, that's anxiety. Now let's talk about why. So when I hear you say having that guidance to discover who I am, because at 15 you don't, and all of this is so new. And I find that a lot of parents, when it comes to like high school, like what you're saying, it's like, oh, go, you can go now, I can be your friend now, or I don't have to be checking in on you as much anymore, like I'm just a little hands off. And I am like, no, I'm not an overly controlling mom. I wouldn't even say I'm a controlling mom, because like my kids don't get punished or anything like that, not much, unless it's really bad. I'm just a really probably overly communicative mom. And I have to say, what I get in response are kids that talk all the time about everything. And there are times that I'm like, do we have to talk about every single detail? Like, I, I'd like to go to bed now, but mom, but wait. And it goes to like that saying where a lot of people are like, kids don't like to talk to you and teenagers don't want to talk to you. And I think it's a crock of shit. I think
Yeah,
that,
well, I think something that you've installed in your kids, which allows this, is that curiosity.
yeah.
Actually genuinely curious about what they're feeling, how they're acting, why they're doing this, who they are, what they like. That speaks volumes when you can be genuinely curious about who they are and who they want to be.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you, I just got such goosebumps, Kim. I think it goes back to what you were saying about that guidance of like figuring out who you are. Like
Hmm.
it's, and from all the work that we've done over the years and all the different process work that you and I have done with other people in our own private practices, I think what happens for me is and tell me your experiences when I've talked to adults and even in this conversation right now, and we've reflected on that childhood stuff. What did we most want? Our parents to ask us questions and guide us, not control us, over control us, or under control us, right? And I find even with my clients today, like when I work with my clients, I'm like, look, I really do believe that what we all want to feel is in control. In control is a fabulous feeling, you know, but when we're over controlled or we're under controlled, we're not in control at all. And it's really hard to know who we are because we're like just in so many different places. So to me, being in control is in curiosity and out of judgment. And staying in, when I'm in curiosity and not judgment, I'm staying in connection with my kids. And I don't always have all the answers. You know, you and I were talking about the following night. So that was Friday night. Saturday night was the high school, dance. And at one point we go to take photos and then another mom gets the kids, throws them in the car, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go take them to Chipotle, see you later. And I'm like, it's 6 o'clock and the dance starts at 8 and Chipotle, and I drove home and literally sat in my car in my driveway for 30 minutes, overwhelmed, being like, now I'm overwhelmed. I have overwhelm going on. And I'm like, do I go find him? Do I call him? Do I ask questions? Do I call the, wait, oh God, did I just mess? I think I messed up. I totally messed up. And now I'm out of control and my kid's out of control. And I spun hard and I didn't move. I sat in my car for 30 minutes. My neighbors must have been like, chicks out of a freaking mind. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. And I just sat there. I was like, and I'll be truth. I did some scrolling on my phone for a little
Yeah,
while.
take you
In
right out of that.
my car, and at one point, Kim, I sat and I'm like, my door's right there. My door's
Yeah.
my door is right there. I should go in my house. And I'm like, and
Fight, flight, or freeze, right?
I'm frozen, frozen.
Yeah.
And then I went to another Chipotle and got dinner. Well, and I track Ryder, and he knows that I have a thing. I hate saying I track him. We share location, so he knows that I know where he is, and he and I were in communication for the next couple of hours. And there was even like from Chipotle, because the mom drops him off, drops these kids off, and just drives away. I'm not judging her because I should have had more communication, so that's on me too, right? And I get that. But at one point, like they're walking through the grocery store, dressed in their cutest little outfits, walking through a grocery store because they had nothing to do. And then they end up at my son's father's house, who's out of town. And our rules are you don't go into each other's houses when parents aren't home with friends. Um, However, he says to me, Mom, what else were we supposed to do? Dad's house is right behind the grocery store, and I didn't really want to stand in the grocery store any longer. So we went to Dad's house. Now, I know the way a lot of us were raised, our parents would have lost their nuts over that. I'm like, and I had to watch myself, and my immediate response was almost like, dude, like you're supposed to. And I went, what's the truth? Like, what's reality? And I'm not going to argue with reality here. I'm not going to hold on to any freaking rules here. The reality is this. Us parents did not do a great job at planning this evening for our children. That's the reality. Us parents did not do a good job. These kids are standing in a freaking grocery store, picking their noses, probably thinking about what vape should I buy? You know, what alcohol should I probably steal off the counters? Because why? What else is there to do? Let's grab a bag of chips. I don't know. And then they end up at his dad's house. Why? Because it's there. So
And it
I
was safe for him.
am safe for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was probably spiraling too, and he needed to ground himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'd probably be spiraling too for 2 hours, not knowing what we're doing, just standing around waiting to go to a dance.
And
Yeah.
not really knowing all of these kids either,
Yeah.
you know. So I love that you named that, Kim, because I don't think I saw it as safety for him, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
Grounded him.
Yep. Where am I? I'm here. I know where here is. This is what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what if I would have held on to a rule in that moment?
Right. And you came at him. What are you doing in the house? How dare you go into somebody's house within our home and bring your friends there? That would have been a whole different experience for both of you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think it just, you know, we have to have our rules, just like you wish you would have had more rules as a kid, right?
Hmm.
But we have to flow with our rules.
Well, we talk about that a ton,
Mhm.
about the fluidity, like to have boundaries, but to allow it to flow. Because a boundary today might not meet the needs that we have tomorrow. So we have to allow that flexibility in that room. And you have to be present with the moment to know if that's a boundary that even should exist anymore.
Yeah. It's hard to do,
Yeah,
staying in the
my
moment,
day.
in the moment, because our kids are very different in age.
Very, yeah.
So I've got a 15-year-old and a 19-year-old. How old are yours?
They'll be 8 and 9 in a week.
And God bless you.
I know.
And it is,
Yeah.
what grade is that?
Third and second.
In second. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
So it is different and the boundaries are different and, you know, trying to stay present in that is interesting, we'll say.
what's that last?
What?
What's that last? That we, what is that when you laugh like that? Stay like for you.
Uh, it just means like it's a work in progress, and it's not something that is always easy,
Mhm.
you know, trying to stay in that moment and to be aware of their needs and my needs is not always easy.
Mhm.
But I don't want to go down the road of saying parenting is hard because I don't think that's the truth. I think it's just a learning experience, and learning anything new is hard. It's
Mhm.
hard, you know, and every age is new. So it's like it's never ending.
So what do you do when you have moments? Like I hear you and I agree with you. Like I don't think I don't, I think when we hold on to the thought that we've been told over and over and over again that parenting is hard, we then see our children and parenting is hard. We see it through that filter. But if we don't hold on to that thought that parenting is hard, and instead we meet the hard moments in parenting, which is different.
Hmm.
When you meet a moment that's hard in parenting, what do you do? How do you manage it?
No, I mean, sometimes I manage it well and I can take that moment to breathe and assess, like, okay, this is actually what my kids might be feeling at this moment, and to meet them there. And then sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm just triggered and I just auto respond with yelling, like
Mm,
like the other day we were talking about my son, and I'm downstairs venting to them about why I'm so upset and he's there doing this face while I'm talking. And I, instead of like meeting him in that moment of saying, "Oh, he's just reflecting exactly what I'm giving him right now," I met him with, "How dare you disrespect me?
mm.
Go to your room." So, there's moments that I catch it and there's moments that I don't.
And then when you catch it afterwards, what do you do with it?
Well, when I caught that, so I caught that pretty quick because once I like put him into his room, I was like, oh, I totally failed in that moment. So I went and I had a chat with them and we had a really good heart-to-heart chat, the three of us. I was like, hey guys, like I was feeling a lot of stuff and I was trying to express that to you. And I know how I was expressing that to you was not the kindest way, but I do want you to know that I was going through my own stuff in that moment. And um, when you did that to me, when you were doing that face to me, it was telling me that you don't care. You
Mm.
don't care about me. And I know that's not the truth. So let's do this over. And so that's what that looks like.
How do they respond to that?
Well, uh, they opened up, in
Mm,
fact. So, I was asking them if I ever scare them,
mm,
when I get into those modes, and Ben right away he was like, "Yeah, like you scare me." And Ember's like, "No, no, you don't scare me." And as soon as I validated for Ben, like, "Hey, bud, like I get why you're scared. Like I understand that because I'd be scared too." Like
mm,
I used to have that happen in my life growing up,
mm.
and I know that that can be really scary and it can make you feel really unsafe. So I totally get that. And as soon as I gave him permission to feel scared and that his feelings were validated, Ember chimed in and she was like, "You know what? Actually, I feel scared too." And I was like, "Yeah." And of course that hurt. That hurt me to know that my kids were scared of me in that moment, but it also gave us a really beautiful opportunity to have that moment
Yeah,
and share those things, honestly.
yeah. And what you and I have talked about is the trust that that creates between the two of you, the three of you. Where
Yeah.
the kids learn that they can make mistakes too, because they're going to
Yeah.
own it. And I do want to reflect on one thing before we go is when, because I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, hold on a minute. If my kid was like to me as I was talking, I would want to kill him. And that is disrespectful. And that is an awful thing. And the way you named it was your recognition when he was doing that was he was mirroring back not your words that he was
My
hearing,
energy.
your energy.
Hmm.
And what would you call that energy that he was mirroring back to you?
Nagging.
Was it more than nagging because they were
Uh,
scared? Do you know what I mean?
they weren't, I don't think he was scared in that moment.
Okay,
That whole scared conversation came from like that energy that have can sometimes spiral out of control and it can get to
got it.
that level of intensity,
Got it.
right? But this was more of a like, you guys don't listen to me, and I'm always cleaning, and nobody ever respects that I clean all the time, and blah, 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 blah. And don't you see me cleaning? And nag, 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 nag. So he was just like, nee, 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 nee. On
Okay,
and on
I
you
love
go,
this.
on and on you go.
Well, I
Did
love
you
this.
already say this 5 times? Like we heard you.
So I love how what I'm hearing you say is, don't you see me? I
Yep.
do all of this. Don't you love me? So
Hmm.
is your nagging, like what does nagging mean? Is it just being annoying? Or is this so-called nagging a moment that us moms can have where we don't feel seen or heard
Yeah.
or validated or understood
Hmm.
or important? Is that our old shit of not being acknowledged coming up in that moment?
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
want to name that because I think that like we think of nagging, ah, she's such a nag. It's a
No, it was just my cry for help. It was just my cry to be seen, you know? And that's what our kids do all the time, when they're pushing your buttons, they're begging to be seen or heard or understood.
so as a mom, when we have those moments of begging to be seen, how does it show up? Because we're not conscious of it in the moment, right? It showed up in this like nagging, or let me tell you how I feel so unimportant without telling you how unimportant I feel. Is that how what it sounds like to you?
Yeah. Yeah, most of the times when I'm feeling underappreciated, um, or like nobody sees all the hard work that I do all day, um, that's when I'm triggered and I react.
Because we know our 8 and 9-year-old should really walk in the house and really appreciate the fact that you've like
Wow, Mom, you scrubbed that toilet so good. Well done.
isn't that so funny?
Oh, thanks for cleaning out that old toothpaste in the sink. It was really bothering me.
But gosh dang it, why don't you see what I did?
Didn't even see it in the first place. Uh,
It does go back to what you and I talk about, which is when we don't have our core emotional needs met in our childhood, which is listen, observe, validate, understand. If we don't feel, or in other words, if we don't feel heard or seen or validated or understood in our childhood, and those are emotional needs, they can become neediness in our adulthood in ways that we're not even aware of.
yeah, absolutely.
This is where parenting is hard. This is why it feels so hard. It's because our shit is intertwining with their stuff and their growth. Like here's their behaviors and growth, and here's our old shit that wasn't met, and it gets all tangled up, and it's sort of like, where does one thing begin and the other one ends? And who the hell am I today?
Yeah.
That's
And it
what's
also gets intertwined with all the beliefs of who we want to be and who we think we should be in a parent, you know? So when that's all intertwined in there and then we don't show up, then we beat ourselves up and just makes the knot a little bigger and a little harder to unravel.
I love that. The knot a little bit bigger. Because even when you say that, I'm like, how we can get that knot in our chest or the knot in our throat or the knot in our stomach. And it's just like, what is this feeling? And oftentimes
Hmm.
that knot in our body and it's uncomfortable. We're like, who's causing this? What? Oh, it's you. Whoever's outside of us
Hmm.
is causing what we're experiencing inside of us. And that knot is getting bigger and bigger, but it started a long time ago.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to remember to just pull it one thread at a time. And it's not going to happen overnight. And it's just one thread at a time.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Good weekend.
It's always a good weekend.
Good weekend. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
All right, Mama. Till next week.
All right. You too.
Bye.